Station for your business's message. So this Eagles season, don't have your business sitting on the sidelines. Be a part of the Philadelphia Eagles season on 97.3 ESPN. To be a part of the Eagles season, call Market President Mike Rubel at 609-910-5249.
Sports is what we do.
You're in your car, you're in your house, you're wherever you are. You're a sports fan.
97.3 ESPN.
Because if you weren't a sports fan, you wouldn't be listening.
WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Thursday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Thank you all for joining me on this Thursday evening. Phillies win in Miami. Eagles training camp talk and a little college football we'll get into this hour as well here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. As always, you can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You also can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Text in, DM us, however you want to reach out to the show. We are here to hang out with you for the next hour. Before we get to the Eagles talk, because I have plenty to talk about with that, I want to start with the Phillies because despite my frustrations with them not doing more at the deadline, they still came out and won 3 out of 4 against a team that did do more than them at the deadline. The Marlins made significant moves at the deadline to make their team better. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter one bit that they put themselves in a position to do better. Didn't matter at all. They showed up and still couldn't beat the Phillies for 3 out of 4 games. Now, last night's game, we will touch on that for a minute. It was horrible. The way they lost that game was utterly disheartening to the point where a buddy of mine was literally texting me saying, I don't know how they're going to win on Sunday. Well, the reason why they win today's game. And the reason why they won today's game after losing last night was 2 reasons. One, because Michael Lorenzen went out and had arguably one of the best pitching performances I've ever seen by a guy coming out of the All-Star break. You know, it kind of reminded you a little bit. Mike Gill mentioned this earlier on the Sports Bash. It reminded you of Cliff Lee years ago. It reminded me, the guy that I like, the best I ever saw of a guy being traded at the deadline and performing when Randy Johnson was traded by Seattle to Houston. That was historically good. And then the next best guy I can remember was CC Sabathia when he got traded from Cleveland to the Milwaukee Brewers. And then, of course, Cliff Lee with the Phillies. But what we saw from Michael Lorenzen today, it wasn't Cy Young level worthy. Like what Randy Johnson and Cliff Lee and CC Sabathia did, that was like top tier. Lorenzen was the tier below top tier. It was really good. And he gave that bullpen a lot of room to breathe on a night that they absolutely needed it. And if you want to call Dave Dombrowski a poker player, maybe he is, because he rolled the dice he rolled the dice at the craps table. He spun the roulette wheel. He pushed his chips to the middle of the table with the hand that he had at the poker table, Whatever analogy you want to use with betting, we're right here near Atlantic City here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm basically a 15-minute drive from the casinos if I wanted to go over there. But whatever analogy you want to use, Dave Dombrowski did it. Because Dave Dombrowski said, I'm going to need more pitching. And I'm not willing to give up my prospects to make an improvement to a starting lineup that I think just needs to find themselves. Now, look, Trey Turner, I don't know if he's ever going to get it right this year. He may be like Nick Castellanos. He just may be a guy that, he needs an entire offseason to recalibrate and refine himself. But you already saw JT Realmuto. Realmuto has 2 days off because he ripped his hand open in the first game. He gets 2 days off. He comes into this game, blasts a home run. And I'm starting to wonder if Realmuto is just at a point in his career where if you give him enough days off, he's going to still be a productive hitter. And if you ask him to play too many days in a row, he just doesn't have the endurance anymore. Because I remember going back to, we've had Matt Gallup here multiple times on 97.3 ESPN. He interviewed JT Realmuto during that Texas Rangers series, the first weekend of the season. And remember, Realmuto had been playing in the World Baseball Classic. He had not been playing with the Major League Baseball pitch clock. And he explained, hey, I'm winded. I'm not used to this style of baseball. It's even making me tired, with this pitch clock because of all the work he has to do as a catcher behind the plate. And I'm starting to wonder, with that in mind, is it possible that maybe Realmuto is just a guy who, how do I put this without being belligerent? He's just a guy who needs more days off than the average person at this age. And I'm not saying he's old necessarily, but this is a guy who was considered for many years to be, the BCIB, the best catcher in baseball. He's 32 years old. Maybe the years of playing catcher has worn him down a little bit. And between that and the pitch clock, maybe he's a guy, if you want him to be his most productive, he just can't play more than 140 games a season. Last year, JT Realmuto played 139 games and had 22 home runs and 84 RBI. He has not played more than 140 games in a season since 2019. So you're talking about a guy who just might not be able to play the maximum number of games anymore. But he gets 2 days off because he's dealing with that hand cut he took, that abrasion on his hand. And he goes out there and boom, hits a home run today. So I don't think it's that simple for Trey Turner. But I think if the rest of the team can figure it out and Trey Turner can moderately figure it out and get a little bit better, then the Phillies have a chance to really continue to be a playoff team. And I think that for all the criticism that I have had and other people have had about Dave Dombrowski, as of right now, the Michael Lorenzen pickup was a massive home run for the Phillies. So it will be interesting to see what happens moving forward. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also, your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank Seattle. And also with that 6-man rotation they're going to have, the metrics show that Aaron Nola is actually a better pitcher when he gets the extra day off than when he doesn't. So I don't know what to do with that information necessarily. I don't know if that means Nola's going to have the greatest August of his career or what, but you're hoping that maybe Aaron Nola can just go out there and, be better for the rest of the season, right? I just get the feeling with Aaron Nola that he is the kind of guy who, once he gets in a groove, he's going to be good. The problem with Nola is that, as I told you guys before, the home runs are up and the walks are up, and that bothers me because that, for me, is a picture of a guy who's having some control issues. And frankly, I just don't care about, the pitch clock is affecting him, because ultimately it's August. Everyone is dealing with the same pitch clock as you are. And if everyone else has had to figure it out, so do you. And if you can't figure it out, then you know what? Maybe there's something wrong with you, right? But Aaron Nola, when he has 4 days rest in between starts, okay, so, the normal schedule, you pitch on Monday, right? And then you pitch again on Saturday. His career ERA in those games, okay? And I literally just lost where I had the stat. Oh, there it is. 432. So a normal rotation, he has a 432 ERA. When he gets 5 days in between, so if he starts on a Monday, he pitches again on a Sunday, his ERA is 3.17. This is according to baseballreference.com. So he has an ERA that's an entire run lower when he gets more rest than when he doesn't. So maybe that is the strategy moving forward. Maybe for the Phillies, if they can keep Nola stretched out, if they can keep him being a guy who doesn't have to pitch as many times in the month of August and December, he could be a better pitcher. Now, what's interesting about Nola also is that this is the time of year that you always worry about, hey, have these guys been playing a lot, pitching a lot, throwing a lot throughout the season? And it just has to make you wonder. Maybe the Phillies are just a team that needs a little extra rest at the end of the year. All right, let's get to your text right now. 609-403-0973. Joey D. and Ventnor chimes in. Joey D. says, Lorenzen did an amazing job today. After last night, do you think Lorenzen will replace Nola this offseason? He's a cheaper option than Aaron Nola will be. That's from Joey D. and Ventnor. I mean, he's obviously a cheaper option because he's a lesser pitcher. And I think that is the conundrum for the Phillies. Aaron Nola is a better pitcher than Michael Lorenzen. All the numbers, all the metrics say that he is. And it's not like it's an age issue, because Aaron Nola is 30 years old. Okay? So he's not old. Now, old Michael Lorenzen is, he's 31. He's a year older than Aaron Nola is. Aaron Nola is just a better pitcher than Michael Lorenzen is in every sense of the term. He's better at getting swings and misses. He's got a better career whip. He's got a better pretty much everything than Michael Lorenzen does. But the question is, are the Phillies going to be willing to take the money that they're making and give it to Aaron Nola at the price that he's going to want? Because you're already spending stupid money, to use that term again from John Middleton from years ago. That's stupid money on Bryce Harper and Trey Turner. And you're going to have to make a decision eventually on Zach Wheeler. If you're the Phillies, do you look at Aaron Nola and say, hey, thanks for playing, but we are only willing to sign you at a certain number. I don't know, man. It's a real tough decision because ideally you want to keep Aaron Nola beyond Zach Wheeler's current term if you're just going off of age. Because Wheeler, when he becomes a free agent, he's going to be 35 years old. Right now, Zach Wheeler is 3 years older than Aaron Nola. So, in theory, he's going to get to the end of the road faster than Nola is. But do you want to pay Aaron Nola a 4-year, $25 million contract each year that would add up to $100 million? Are the Philadelphia Phillies willing to give Aaron Nola what the market calls for a guy like that? Now, look, I don't think Aaron Nola is a bad pitcher. I just don't think he's a great pitcher. And I think that's the difference. Lorenzen may be cheaper, Joey D, but he's not as good as Aaron Nola, shorter or long term. Look, Aaron Nola is a guy whose resume is actually pretty good. It's not like, all time good, but you're a good number 2 starter. You're an excellent 3 starter kind of good. It's like how when you look at certain teams that win the World Series or go to the World Series multiple times, right? Back in the early 90s before the Braves got Greg Maddux, it was Tom Glavine and John Smoltz. And then the third and fourth guys, they didn't need those guys to be elite. They just needed them to be good. And I think Aaron Nola is better than Pete Smith and Danny Nagel and Steve Avery, but I don't think he's on the level of Glavine and Maddux. The 93 Phillies had Kurt Schilling and Tommy Green and Danny Jackson, right? And Terry Mulholland. Well, Kurt Schilling is basically a candidate for the Baseball Hall of Fame. Danny Jackson and Tommy Green, they're never going to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think Nola is about as good as those guys. I don't think he'll ever be a Kurt Schilling kind of guy, but I think he's a Tommy Green, Danny Jackson guy. I mean, you're talking about a guy in Aaron Nola who has been top 5 of the National League 4 times in innings pitched since 2018. He has been top 10 in strikeouts per 9 innings 5 of the last 6 years. So I think that's a way better player than Michael Lorenzen is. And the problem is that are you willing to give Aaron Nola the money you think that he's going to need to get? Dan EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973, says the worst thing about Trey Turner is that he's played so terrible defensively. He can make plays right in front of him. If that, I would take him out in late games for Sosa or Castro. Well, Dan EHT is easy for you to say, not knowing that he's a Gold Glove winner. Trey Turner, when we were talking about free agencies offseason, and it was Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa, and Dansby Swanson, most people believed that Trey Turner was either the best shortstop or one of the 2 best shortstops in baseball. And that the other of those 3 guys, only one of them could be better than Trey Turner, not all 3 of them. Trey Turner is not a guy you take out as a late game defensive replacement, because what you're doing is you are saying his glove and his bat are so invaluable despite the money we're paying him. And Danny HC, I don't think the Phillies are willing to do that. I don't think the Philadelphia Phillies are willing to look Trey Turner in the eye and say, despite your resume, despite your experience, despite your history as a ball player, despite your pedigree, we are going to treat you like you're Desi Relaford. There's a name for the past for you Phillies fans. We're going to treat you like you're Marlon Anderson. We're going to treat you like you're a mediocre baseball player because his resume does not say he is a mediocre baseball player. This is a guy who has been in the voting for MVP 3 different times. He has been an all-star multiple times. He has been a silver slugger. And you look at his career in the field, excluding this season, that's why I say excluding this year, for his career, he's been a good fielder. He has been a good ball player. The majority of his career, he has had a high fielding percentage. It's just this year that he's .966. The only time he's ever had more errors than he's had this year was last year with the Dodgers. So unless at age 30, he has suddenly gone senile as a fielder, I'm willing to lean on the guy's history. I'm willing to lean on the fact that outside of last year with the Dodgers and this year, because he's going to get more than 13 errors this year, he's not a guy who's a bad fielder. And I'm not going to take last night's game and hold that perpetually against him. Because the other problem is you take him out for a defensive replacement, you don't have his bat in the lineup anymore. And even though he has the worst batting average of his career right now, since he came up for 27 games in 2015, even though he has the worst on base percentage of his career, even though he is on pace to have the most strikeouts in a season that he has had since 2018. And that year, by the way, in 2018, when he had 132 strikeouts, he also led the National League in stolen bases with 43. His career has demonstrated that he is, without a doubt, a guy you don't take off the field. Now, if you want to give him a day rest or 2 extra coming up, I'm willing to live with that. I'm willing to live with the idea that if you want to give this guy a rest here and there, you can do that. But I don't know. Maybe he's like JT at this point. Maybe he needs an extra day off or 2. All right. I got George and Summers Point, ship and lose. I'm going to get to both of your messages coming up on the other side. Josh Hennick here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Josh Hennick hanging out with you on a Thursday night.
The hunt for October continues on ESPN Radio.
To center field. The game is tied. Machado does it.
Heated National League West rivals go head-to-head at Petco Park in San Diego. Manny Machado and the Padres face Freddie Freeman and the Los Angeles Dodgers.
The throw.
The Padres and Dodgers. Coverage begins Saturday at 8 Eastern and Sunday at 6 Eastern.
Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language? In as little as 3 weeks, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. Have you been to Trio North Wildwood yet? They're open every day except Tuesday, and there's a new Taste of Trio menu from 5 to 5:30 Sunday through Friday with an amazing 3-course meal for just $45 per person. Trio is chef-driven, BYOB, bridging the gap between bar food and fine dining. Try Trio North Wildwood with reservations on Resi, 700 New Jersey Avenue in North Wildwood. TrioNW.com.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter code TRUST at checkout. That's harrys.com, code TRUST. Enjoy.
Any trade, any trade, any trade. Bring any trade to Matt Platt Nissan, and AJ the Trademan will give you more for your trade so you can drive away with peace of mind with Matt Platt Nissan's exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Platt Nissan.
So cash in your vehicle now before it's too late and drive home in a new Nissan today. It's on at Matt Platt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
Hey, this is Josh from 97.3 ESPN. If your air conditioning isn't keeping you cool, or if you're worried about sky-high electric bills, I recommend you call Jenkins Plumbing and Heating today about a new system from American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning or a Mitsubishi ductless system. Take advantage of financing of up to $15,000 from South Jersey Gas or Atlantic City Electric. New AC system can save you 25 to 35% on your AC bill. Call Jenkins at 609-641-6440, online at jenkinsandsons.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on ESPN and the free mobile app.
Almost 6:30 here on a Thursday night. A little bit long for like usually do. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on the Power Hour. No guest night, just you and me for the hour on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. See how back to the text board we go. Oh, Danny H. does not like my answer. 609-403-0973. Dan, listen, you have your right to not like him. You have your right to be upset with him. You have your right to be frustrated with him. But telling me, OMG, Turner is what he is just about unplayable, is not true. Because guess what? I've seen players who are worse than Trey Turner play in the major leagues. You know, when Chuck Knobloch was having those issues back for the Yankees, when they acquired him years ago, what was that, like 98, 99? They didn't bench him for all of his issues. Remember, when the Yankees won all those games in 98 and 99, Chuck Knobloch was still starting 150 of those games. And even though Chuck Knobloch went from a 290 hitter to a 260 hitter, even though Knobloch had his on-base percentage drop by 30 points, even though Knobloch went from being a guy who pretty much didn't have errors. I mean, this is a guy who had 13 errors in 1998, did Chuck Knobloch. You know the last time Chuck Knobloch before that had 13 errors? Oh, that's right. Between 96 and 97, he had a total of 20 errors. That's an exponential spike. And by the way, the next year, he had 26 errors for the Yankees. But before that, Knobloch, the only time he had 30 errors was from 95 to 97. He had a total of 30 errors. But the Yankees didn't bench him. They didn't deem him unplayable. They still played him because at the end of the day, Chuck Knobloch was still better than the average ball player available. For all of his blunders, for all of his issues, and by the way, Knobloch was the same age that Trey Turner is now when he was having his issues. 30 years old, 29 years old. Now, Knobloch, his hitting rebounded from 98 to 99. He was actually even a better hitter in 2000 than he was in 98. He got the on-base percentage back up. He got to being a better hitter, but the fielding never came back. The bat came back. The glove never really recovered. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to Trey Turner, but Dan and EHC, I think you're being very irrational with this one. If the Yankees played Chuck Knobloch 150 games in 1998 and 1999, and his numbers as a defensive player were as bad, if not worse, than Trey Turner, then why am I going to bench Trey Turner? Why am I going to say he's unplayable? I think it's a bad attitude to have. George in Summers Point chimes in at 609-403-0973. Says, hey, Josh, I think you may be right about JT needing more time off. My question is, do you think Stubbs is good enough to be a backup catcher going forward for this team, especially with his below average offensive production? Thanks as always, George in Summers Point. George, I don't think Stubbs is the kind of catcher I want backing up a guy who can't play more than 140 games a season. If JT Realmuto turns into the catcher that can only play like 130 games a year, my backup can't be Stubbs. It just can't. And I think that's the difficulty right now. I think the Phillies, they're going to have an honest conversation this offseason about where JT's future is on this roster. Because I think that he is still a very good ball player. He is still an elite defensive player. I think he still has pop in his bat. But for a guy who's 32 years old to be making $23 million a year and to be having arguably his worst offensive season he's had in years in terms of batting average, I think it's a problem. And he's got 2 more years left on his contract. He is signed through his age 34 season. So if we're going to proceed forward as if JT Realmuto is a guy who cannot play a certain number of games anymore, and I don't think Stubbs can be your backup. I think you got to find a different player to be backing up. And I think that this is where the trade deadline last year came back to bite you this year. Because you traded Logan O'Hoppe last trade deadline. And even though he's injured at the moment, Logan O'Hoppe would be a massive upgrade over Stubbs. And I don't know if Marchant, who's down in the minors, is a good enough catcher to be an everyday backup catcher. I think Stubbs is the kind of catcher who, if you're asking him to play 15 to 17 games a season, right? You're saying, okay, Stubbs is that guy. He's solid as a receiver. He is somebody who is good in the locker room. The pitchers get along with him, and he's a solid player. But if you have a guy in GT Realmuto who over the next 2 years, you have decide, hey, this guy can't play more than 130 games a year, I am not comfortable with playing Stubbs for the other 32 games. I'm sorry, for the other, of the other 32 games. I'm just not comfortable with it. So, yeah, I would like to see another catcher be JT's backup the next 2 seasons. I don't know who that is necessarily, but, if the only solution for JT Realmuto moving forward is he can't play 45 games a season anymore, and he's got to get it knocked down to 130, George Summers' point, you're right. It can't be Stubbs. He doesn't have enough offensive productivity in his bat to do that. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Josh Eddy hanging out with you on a Thursday night. Chip chiming in is Chip from Luz. He says, Josh, I like that response about Nola versus Lorenzen. One critical factor for me, this is Lorenzen's first year ever pitching more than 100 innings. I'm not blaming him, but he doesn't have Nola's track record of eating innings either. Well, but that's part of the reason why Nola's a better pitcher, Chip. Lorenzen's got a couple things that are a problem with him. Number one, he has not been a starting pitcher his entire career. Remember, this is a guy who, for years, was a bullpen pitcher and not a starter. He only became a full-time starter in the last 2 seasons. There's never been a point in time where you looked at Aaron Nola and said, yeah, you know what, Nola, I don't know if you're good enough. Why don't you go sit in the bullpen and come out of there? Literally, this guy from 2016 to 2021 was looked at as a bullpen pitcher and not a starting pitcher who can go every day. That's why he has 2 years where he finally gets starts and he gets around 100 innings, because Chip, he was a bullpen pitcher. He was a guy who didn't start games. So Nola's track record of eating innings is because Nola was looked at from day one as, this is a starting pitcher. This is a guy who we drafted in the first round. We know he's more than capable of being a starting pitcher. Excuse me. Lorenzen, he's been a bullpen pitcher. He's been a starting pitcher. It's kind of been this weird, we're not really sure what he is as a starting pitcher guy. And it's only been recently, after he left the Reds organization and he started playing for other organizations like the Angels and the Tigers, that he suddenly became that guy who can be a reliable starting pitcher. And I think that's what I mean. Aaron Nola is the better pitcher. He has the better resume. He's the better baseball player than Lorenzen. If Lorenzen was good enough to be a starter from day one, he would have been a starter every single year. And baseball is full of guys who are solid and not great pitchers. They're full of them. Look, I'm not saying Lorenzen. How do I put this? I'm not saying Lorenzen can't be a good pitcher. What I'm saying is that Lorenzen just doesn't have the tools that Aaron Nola does. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He's not a guy who is going to go out there and chew up tons of innings. And I don't think that means after one start, he's going to be the guy who could replace Aaron Nola in the rotation. And, Matt and Kate May, I see you chiming in, but that was where the conversation began with. The conversation about 20, 30 minutes ago, the text came in from Jody and Ventnor, said, could Lorenzen be the cheap replacement for Nola if Nola walks? And I said, well, he's a cheap replacement in terms of dollars, but he's a cheap replacement because he's not as good of a pitcher. So, listen, Matt and Kate, I understand what you're saying. You're saying, Josh, we can't just let Lorenzen pitch one game at a time and see how it goes. Let's not overthink it. I'm not overthinking it. I'm just telling you that the guy's track record is he's only been doing this for 2 years. I'm not willing to take Aaron Nola's spot in the rotation away because Lorenzen has one great game. That's what I'm talking about. Matt and Kate May. All right. More your text just a bit. 609-403-0973. We'll continue the baseball talk and get into some football on the other side here. Josh Henning hanging out with you on a Thursday night on 97.3 ESPN.
Hi, this is Billy Schwein from The Locker Room. Join me and former Chief of the Longport Beach Patrol, Dan Adams, and former Lieutenants of the Ocean City Beach Patrol, John McShane and Jack Brooks, this Friday for 97.3 ESPN's live coverage of the 2023 Margate Memorial Lifeguard Championships from the beach in Margate.
97.3 ESPN's live coverage of the 2023 Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races is brought to you by Leeds Builders of Margate, building beautiful homes by the sea for over 30 years. McCann Realtors of Seattle City, experience the McCann difference. Family owned and operated since 1939. Blitz's Market, located at 21st and Asbury in Ocean City, voted Best Deli 7 years running, now serving freshly squeezed orange juice. And by the famous Dino's Subs and Pizza of Margate, open since 1964, located at 8016 Ventnor Avenue in Margate. Live coverage of the 2023 Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races tomorrow night at 6 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. You know, changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Pennzoil Platinum can help your engine get more miles. Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP extended life oil filter for only $35.99. Get started on your next job today with the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Hey, it's Mike Gill. Trio North Wildwood is where casual elegance meets delectable dining. Experience the perfect blend of comfortable atmosphere and gourmet cuisine. Savor our chef-inspired dishes made with the freshest ingredients, featuring options for all tastes. Treat yourself to a night out at Trio North Wildwood and indulge in the ultimate dining experience. Reservations on Resi. Don't miss out on the taste sensation that is Trio North Wildwood. 700 New Jersey Avenue, North Wildwood. Chef-driven, quality-focused, TrioNW.com.
Ask Sherwin-Williams during the Shades of Summer sale, July 28th through August 7th, and get 35% off paints and stains with prices starting at $28.92. That means 35% off our most popular color family, blue. Psychologists have found it to be soothing and relaxing, which makes it especially great for bedrooms and bathrooms. And of course, get 35% off all of our other colors. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Are you getting hit hard by low trade offers?
Ouch! That was a blindside.
That's a personal foul. Don't get blindsided by low trade offers. Bring any trade to Matt Platt Kia. Just because you don't see your new Kia on the lot doesn't mean you can't be driving it home tomorrow. Select from hundreds of new and certified Kias.
It's gotta be a Matt Black Kia.
Matt Platt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 and Tom's River.
Hey, this is Josh from 97.3 ESPN. If your air Take advantage of financing of up to $15,000 from South Jersey Gas or Atlantic City Electric. New AC system can save you 25 to 35% on your AC bill. Call Jenkins at 609-641-6.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
I want to get some football in here before we finish up the hour. A couple of items that came in throughout the last 24 hours. I want to first stick with the Eagles because Nick Sirianni was a guest on the Up and Adams show, hosted by Kay Adams on FanDuel TV. She's doing her tour around the country and around the NFL. And I think there were two things that Nick Sirianni talked about that were very important, at least for me as a football person and as a football fan, Eagles fan, whatever category we're sticking in, but as someone of interest in what is going to happen on the Eagles team that has a new coordinator this year, Brian Johnson, right? The question is by a lot of people, well, this is his first year being an offensive coordinator in the NFL. Yes, he was an offensive coordinator in Florida, right? Those of us who are football people, football junkies know that, but is it going to be different for him in the NFL? And I thought Sirianni's answer was very eye-opening about how Sirianni views the position of offensive coordinator. Take a listen.
He's done it before. That's one thing. Like, I think that people don't know he's done it in Florida, right? And I know that's not the NFL, but that's big time college football, and he's done it before. He's sat in all the meetings. A lot of the calling it is the prep that goes into calling it, right? People may think that we go out there and just let it rip, but there's a lot of prep that goes into it. You have a lot of discussions on what you're going to do on this third down, in this situation, on this fourth down, in the red zone in one area. Like, all those decisions are made prior to the game. Now, the game changes and you have to adjust as it goes. But that's something that we're used to too. Of like, hey, they do this, we get to this. They do that, we get to that. And so the preparation is done throughout the week and throughout the year. And Brian's been on all those discussions with myself and with Shane.
Shane being Shane Steichen, who's now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And I thought it was very, very interesting how Sirianni explained. He believed that the preparation of the game plan is as important, if not more important, than the play calling on Sunday. I think that is a huge deal for why Brian Johnson is not going to fail as offensive coordinator. Because, as Sirianni said, this guy has been intimately and closely involved in the play calling for this organization for the last 2 years. And so, for a team that's going to the postseason 2 straight years, had a MVP runner-up last season, all right, what you're basically telling me, if you are Nick Sirianni, is that Brian Johnson was very involved in the game plans the last 2 years, that he was involved in the plays that you saw called every Sunday, and that he was just as involved as anybody of importance in this organization at putting this team in position to win games. Nick Sirianni has won over 60% of his games as Eagles head coach. And what that means ultimately is that Brian Johnson was a huge part of that winning. So I thought it was great to hear Sirianni explain to people. And look, it's not a, oh, Kay Adams is stupid. That was a dumb question. Or, man, the national media are all a bunch of idiots because they have questions about this guy, Brian Johnson, being a coordinator. Sirianni said, look, I understand that the perception is that this guy is a first-year coordinator is he going to have problems? When Sirianni is saying, you don't look at the job the same way I do. Let me explain to you the value of this job. And for Sirianni, the value of the job is that I need my offense coordinator to be involved in the game plan during the week to a certain tier, and that will translate on game day to success on the field. He values what Brian Johnson brings during the preparation of the game week more than he values just what he's going to call on 3rd and 6 on the 40-yard line with the Eagles down 7-3 in the second quarter. And I think that tells you that Sirianni is saying, how you think of the OC is not how I think of the OC. He looks at the offensive coordinator as a guy who's much more than just calling plays during the course of a game. And I think that is a very important distinction that he brought up there with Kay Adams to say that, look, I know historically a lot of offensive coordinators are guys who are really good play callers. You know, you look at somebody, just to use the example, Kyle Shanahan as a head coach, Doug Peterson as head coach, they call their own plays. Why? Because they want the offense and the pace of the game to be dictated a certain way by their play calling. So for them, the play caller is very important. For Nick Sirianni, the person calling the plays is supposed to be an extension of the game plan during the week. And that for him is the major difference. I thought that was a very fascinating line that he drew between those two. And again, it wasn't a, hey, I'm going to teach you football necessarily moment. It was a, let me give you clarity about why I have no concerns about Brian Johnson being the OC. And I'm sure that there are people during the season who are going to look at some games and say, well, the Eagles could have scored more points, but Brian Johnson called this play and that play. And what's going to happen is I'm going to be here in October or November on 97.3 ESPN FM and on your 97.3 ESPN mobile app, download for free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle. See the latest articles about the Eagles, Phillies, and more over at 97.3ESPN.com. I'm going to be here on the station telling you guys, hey, Brian Johnson calling the plays is not the reason why they didn't score X number of points in this game. And that Brian Johnson being a first-year offensive coordinator of the NFL is not the reason why you're not scoring X number of points. There's going to be other reasons why, and that's because we got this information from Nick Sirianni telling us that Brian Johnson's value is not calling plays. It's developing the game plan that they are going to execute on Sunday. And the play calling is just an extension of the game planning during the week. Before I get out of here, the other football thing I want to hit on is college football. And for those of you listening to me for a while know how much I love college football. I'm a huge college football junkie. College football is losing its mind. We have already seen the University of Colorado is leaving the Pac-12 for another conference in 2024. We already know that there's now a migration of 3 schools from the Pac-12, and more schools are considering leaving because the Pac-12 is having trouble getting a legitimate television agreement. And don't tell me that Apple TV is a legitimate television agreement. That is Apple throwing money at a football organization in the hopes that that organization will give them more content that they can sell to the masses. All right. There are a lot of people right now who are not happy with Apple TV Plus because in order for them to get all the content that they want, the price is getting exorbitant. And there are a lot of studies that show that the majority of people who have multiple streaming, the average American, okay, according to the metrics out there from the Sports Business Journal, the average American only has about 3 streaming apps they use. And that the people who have, 5, 6, 7 streaming platforms, and the people who are spending a lot of money on streaming are not the average person. They're upper middle class, the upper class financial brackets. So football fans are not people who they don't all fit in that category. Football fans are all different economic brackets. So for the Pac-12, they look like they're going to lose their conference because they don't have a legitimate television deal lined up because they're losing 2 schools, UCLA and USC, the Los Angeles market. Now they're losing Colorado. Now, last night, Florida State comes out and says, we're not making enough money as part of the ACC. So either we need to get out or we need the ACC to give us more money. And this is all a domino effect of the reality that because of NIL allowing the athletes to make money, there is less money going into the coffers of the universities. Now the boosters are giving money to the players, and now the universities are having trouble paying the exorbitant chancellor salaries.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, empowering you to live a healthier life.
It's the dog days of summer. We hear that term all the time, but what does it mean and where did that phrase come from? It dates back thousands